Hello everyone and welcome to another EAT esports video, bringing you simulated content for you hopefully to enjoy. My name is EAT Olegna and today I'm presenting to you the FIA round 3, which was in the N300s around Autodrome Lago Maggiore East. This is basically the race that has been live streamed by Berlin, because it was the second time slot and I already live streamed the first time slot, but not with too much focus. And decided to jump into this because I got 2300 points out of that first slot and felt like I could improve on it. So that's why I decided to jump into this one. As you already saw, I qualified into P6, which is already better than what I did in that first time slot, where I think I qualified P10 or P11. In the KTM Expo, as you could see, the main choice for this race was the Toyota SFR racing concept, because, well, I don't know why actually. I have not even practiced in that car, and there's one lonesome BMW M4 which apparently won one of the top speed races in the Australian region. And there we got EAT Berlin, P17, but sure he can improve from that position onwards, as his race pace is way better apparently in this race than the qualifying pace, which counts for both the KTMs. As you already see, in pole position we got Lazarus Lewis, then we got someone from GT4R. I can't see right now what the name is because my screen where I'm looking on is very small. P3 has James. Then the first KTM Expo driver in this split, in P4, Tyrrell Manurodi, and Stefunzi right in front of me on P5. Luckily, it's a 17 lap race, which is around 27 minutes if I'm not mistaken. Very long. And I decided for this race, why not talk about my thought process and why did I went with the KTM Expo? Well, why I went for the KTM Expo is really I saw Tyrrell Arc race or practice in it in the first practice lobby of Nations Cup that I went in, and I did not even think about looking further than that car. I mean, I trust Tyrrell Arc, and if I see him in a KTM Expo and he's practicing seriously, then I'll give it a shot as well. I mean, it surely should be a somewhat competitive car, and as you will see in this race, it actually is. Qualifying wise, the KTM was a little bit slower. That's because the SFR concept car has a lot of grip, and really up until the last corner the concept car is way quicker. It's only the traction or the top speed, yeah. So that's why you right now see as well that if both cars are on fresh tires and everything is just starting, the SFR concept car is the quicker car. But as it is a 17 lap race and we are driving on sport hard compounds, sorry, I had to look for words there, you could actually no stop it, but KTM has not a lot of downforce. The concept has way more downforce, so to say. It's more superior in the corners, so the front tires of it will wear down quicker than in the KTM. So in the long run, I felt that the KTM would be the more superior car and that I could have done a lot more in it at the end. In my first time slot, or the first race that I participated in that night, I started P10 of course, eventually finished in P5. I had a very awful pace, was battling a lot in the openings laps, and it was only up until lap 9 or 10 when I started to get into my rhythm finally of the race, and I really started to make up some time on the leaders. So I felt if I could stay with this front pack in the start of the race and hopefully like keep close to Manwoodley somewhat because he was my direct competition in this race, not nations wise, but purely the car that we chose in both. So he was capable of the same stuff as I was. So I was lucky to only have one car in between us, as you can see. So my thought process for the opening stint or the opening laps was to basically take it easy, really get into a rhythm, keep the focus, not necessarily on overtaking right now, but just when I noticed that Manuoti would drive away from Stefansi, then I would try to overtake Stefansi. Of course, always as clean as possible. I mean, me, Stefansi, and Manuoti got a lot of respect for one each other, so we will never die from each other. It's just, and you will see it when it will come up, the speed difference in the top end is pretty big, I would say, for the same class of cars. KTM, if it sticks with the concept Toyota, it was almost easily gonna overtake the concept car if you just, well, looked out for your exit speed, kept it clean, maybe kept your tires as clean as possible, so not one right in that corner. Or when you come out of turn 4, you will see during this race I was struggling with turn 4 for some bizarre reason. I couldn't really make the car turn in the way that I wanted it to, so a lot of the times I went pretty wide, wider than I like to go, and I also cut more of that corner than I like to cut, but I had to cut that much almost to be competitive because everyone does. So here you can already see me try to get closer to Stefansi, see if I can plan an attack somewhere, maybe going into turn 1, if I can stick with him to these two corners, turn 3 and turn 4, maybe I can line up an overtake in turn 5. But as you can see in here, went a little bit too wide again, was struggling to get my foot on the throttle coming out of turn 4. So I was just too far away, around 3-4 tenths behind Stefansi, and for me personally that's not a range to overtake someone or to dive up the inside. At least not at this early stage of the race. I mean, we are only 3 laps in our 4th lap out of 17. We got like 22 minutes to go, so there was no hurrying or whatever, just trying to get into the rhythm, keep our tires as good as possible, try to burn as much fuel as possible as well. This because the KTM is way better on fuel than the Toyota concept. So for this race, fuel wise, the Toyota concept was a way better car, but on tires it wasn't. Like at the end stage of this race, I think there's almost 30% of fuel difference, and that's me burning as much fuel as possible, because at the end of this race I will have pretty low fuel when you compare it with the other KTM drivers. But yeah, I can't burn as much as the concept does. They are almost running out of fuel at the end of the race, and we are, well, if we do our best, I think we get it around marginal 35 to 40% fuel. So here you see me that I went for the overtake, took the inside line for turn 1 on Stefansi, and then I kept it around the outside of turn 2. Why I did this was I noticed that I could do it by keeping the car in 3rd gear. The SFR concept car had to shift down to 2nd gear, so when they shift up to 3rd gear after the 2nd corner, they had a little downtime in their traction or acceleration, and that's why I could hang it around the outside, then have basically the inside as well for turn 3 anyway, if it was necessary, but it wasn't really. So here I'm trying to get as close as possible again to Manavotri. I see him trying to make a move on James, so I was not sure if I would follow him. I was pretty far behind full move at this point, but as you will see going into the corner here or coming up to it, I already got pretty close, closer than expected. Didn't want to go for that move for the same reason as I said earlier. It's just too far away to come from, and it will most of the time not be respected if you make a move from that far away. For the most people it feels like some sort of a dive, and they don't feel respected that way as well. So I'm just gonna hang it back. Still a lot of laps to go, and well, for Manarodi there are still 2 cars to overtake, so as long as he stays behind them, I can take my time with overtaking the car in between us. So that's why I go or try to go for a move over here. As you see, when you take the inside line for turn 5, especially in the KTM, the SFR concept takes that corner in 4th gear, so I don't think they shift up until this corner. They go into 5th gear, and the KTM has to take that corner in 3rd gear, then shift up to 4th. So the KTM is a little bit slower coming out of that corner anyway. So taking the inside line through there, well, I have to be already almost past him without some overspeed to make that overtake happen. The big opportunities to make an overtake in any of these cars is this corner. As you could also see, Stefanski got very close to me, so I felt like I had to take a little bit of a defensive line there, even though I know he won't really go for a move there. When he knows that someone is quicker than him, he's not gonna try to overtake and lose more time himself that way. He was very conservative on his tires as well at that moment. So here you can see me make the same move as I did on Stefanski, going for the outside after taking the inside in turn 1, and then I got the corner for turn 3 coming up to turn 4. A little bit of a defensive line, also because I take a way narrow line to turn 3, and that's the overtake basically done. It felt a little bit rough, mostly because the cars were very close to each other, and James bumped against Manarodi, and on that turn he bumped, I think, against Denbeck, if I got his name correctly, the GT4R driver at least. So it was a little bit of bumping going on, not to me luckily, so I just got past him, and that helped me out a lot. And right here I'm just thinking to myself, let's just stick behind Manarodi. You know, I'm not in a hurry to overtake anyone right now. If he overtakes someone, I will attempt to follow him through. But at this moment, I did feel like my pace was alright. I mean, you got Lewis and Denbeck in the concept cars, way slower on the straights. They both know that as well. And you saw Denbeck and Lewis battling each other momentarily there. Don't think Lewis was very happy of it. But yeah, it happened, and it made for Manarodi and I the opportunity to slot in, attempt our overtakes. You saw a little bit of contact there between me and him. I don't know if that's my mistake. I felt like I just hang it around the inside. He steered in a little bit too much. The move was, well, at that moment already done on my end. I wasn't really worrying that I should stick it around the outside of turn 3 because of the throttle, the acceleration differences between cars and the different gears that we were in. And at this moment, when Manarodi overtook Lewis, I was hoping that Manarodi wouldn't immediately pull away, because that is a possibility at this point. I was hoping Lewis could stick with him, and then eventually if I make the move, Manarodi is still within range of me to attack him. So yeah, it's pretty, how can I say, action-full first half of the race. These laps, the first 8 laps, went by pretty quickly as well. I felt like it was just all the time we were overtaking or being in the train, not trying to hit each other. As you can see here right now, it's such a big pace difference. This is Lewis in the slipstream of Manarodi. I'm going around the outside, not taking the slipstream further, and I still had the pace to get past him. So at this stage, me and Manu rode in first and second gear. Then we got the SFR concept cars behind us. Yeah, in my opinion, P1 or P2, the top 2 was already secured for me. I was not worrying that I would fall back anymore, because that's almost impossible in the KTMs at this stage. You'll see the tires are still in great condition, the fuel is doing perfectly fine, and Manuodri was already taking a defensive line momentarily between turn 4 and turn 5, which showed me that he was looking at his rearview mirror. He did not felt confident apparently to try and pull away. At this moment as well, I was trying to catch up to him. Luckily I kept it straight through there. Lou is still close behind us, but even if Manuodri and I would get into a battle at this point, we would be going too fast for Lewis to overtake us. I mean, the apex cornering, as you can see over here, there's a speed difference between the cars, but then you hit the straights over here between the last corner into turn 1, and there's just a gap to be pulled between the P2 and P3 basically. So that's also the biggest reason for me that I went for this car. Most of the time I like, well, handling cars, but also a car with speed. I tend to be able to defend a bit better than being offensive and overtake others. So I'd rather have a car where I can just pull away from someone and look after my tires in the corners and basically waste my race that way. So as you can see right now, I was still struggling. I've been struggling that whole night with turn 5. I couldn't figure out at that moment of time why I was struggling with turn 5. Looking back at it now after watching my replay, I assume it's because of how I took turn 4. I think I went a little bit too wide into turn 4, and if you go too wide there, it will give you dirty tires, and the dirty tires affected me into turn 5. But that's only an assumption. I think that's what was happening. So right now, the slipstream, a weak slipstream of course for these end class races, makes it very easy almost to stay with someone, even if there is a big pace difference. Luckily I knew how my pace was. TOL Manuodri was in a concept car in the first time slot race, so I knew that he was not on optimum pace in the KTM Expo. That's what gave me a lot of confidence myself. I mean, I've been practicing only in this car for this race, and he was up until 2 hours before this race, or 1.5 hours before this race, in a completely different car, a full handling car and not top speed one. So I knew where my strengths were in these kind of cars, and he was a little bit hasty, did not completely knew where to brake, I guess, or yeah, I just had luck with my exit out of turn 4. I see him here leave the space, so I could just take the normal racing line, not lose more time towards the concept cars who were quicker at this section of the track. And what we are about to get at this point is the longest 7 laps of my life. This was during the lightning, of course, of Berlin. It took so long because I am used of sometimes driving in first, but I've never had the opportunity or in my mind even the chance during a race to win it. Like most of the time during a race you already can expect or have some sort of expectation of what is achievable, what do you set as a goal and what do you not set as a goal. And in this race, going into it, seeing the lineup, seeing that I was capable of keeping with the front pack at the start of the race and done here taking the lead, I started to feel like it was possible for me to reset my goal from a top 3 into maybe a win. As this was the second split not the second split, but the second time slot as well, the points were not optimal. They were still 2700 and I think 35 points. But for a top split lobby, that's about 200 to 300 points less than what you would like to have. Especially as they are very difficult to get good points in to finish in a good position because everyone is so competitive. In this race it might not seem like it, but that's purely because of the car choice and the pace difference in the race between the two cars. But normally, as you would have seen in the last live streams that we've already done around Nürburgring GP, which was round 1 and round 2 around, let me remind myself, I think it was GR2 around Blue Moon Bay in Field A. As you could have seen in those races, the pace is so close to each other. You're always in a fight, and it's so difficult as well to get through the pack, be able to finish in a good position. You need to put a lot of time and effort into these races and into the practice to get a good result. And that's why I'm also doing this FIA season. I want to get back into the hang of things. I'm looking into another way to get motivation for these races I should say. First, my motivation was from the points that I could potentially get, but well, from the beginning of this year that didn't help me. It actually demotivated me because of how poorly the point system currently is with the competitiveness in the EMEA region. Everyone is so close to each other, and the driver raters or the driver ratings between drivers in the top 2 to 3 or 4 splits are pretty competitive. So second, third and fourth split, even though the pace difference is so big done, the points are not that big of a difference. If you don't finish, or if you finish below third position, for example, in the top split race in the first time slot, but you win the second slot or the second split in the first time slot, you actually get more points for winning the second split than when you finish the P3 or P4 in the top split. So that's why I am not trying to motivate me via that way. I'm trying to motivate myself by just racing, actually. Like these kind of races that I'm having right now with Manawotri are so cool to have, and really gives a lot of adrenaline and energy to me as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to when I jump into these FIA races, to have clean competitive racing. If I practice good enough, they can even be for a very good position in those races. So the motivation and finding the motivation in this way helps me into getting a better average points for myself. Unfortunately, for in this second time slot, the race of Berlin was not going perfectly well. I think he was struggling. Well, because his qualifying wasn't going that well. His race pace was way better than mine, probably, but he was struggling with way more traffic as well. Other KTM Expo drivers who were in the slipstream of other cars, and if you are in a train, it's so difficult to overtake. As you probably could see when I started P6, the first couple of positions are difficult to take because everyone is in the slipstream of someone, except for the guy who is in either P1 or if there's been a gap that I think with weak slipstream bigger than 2 seconds, then you're without any slipstream. So first it takes a while to get past them, then when the tires are playing up, you will get easier past some cars, and then you get to the end state of this race. Wow, my words, to the end stage of this race, which is right now me and Manawotri in the same cars under the same circumstances. and then it becomes very difficult to like overtake but also to defend. So during this race, as soon as I got past Motivotary, I was really focusing on all my exits as much as possible. At some point I was learning where Motivotary was trying overtake, especially this corner. This was where I was already, wow, my words. This was where I was always struggling. I was very anxious for this corner because as time goes by and the less laps you are having to defend, the more aggressive sometimes drivers can become to go for an overtake. It's all in the mentality and it's also the heat of the moment. Of course, Manu Rodriguez and I know each other now for a year since we've met each other last year at the Nürburgring live event and this year. So we know each other in person as well. We know our driving style, and it was really cool to have such a close race for a full like race distance as well. So close to each other, being so similar on pace, and with our driving style being pretty close to each other as well. Because my tires during this race was actually worse than Manuel Rodriguez's tires. Probably because I was defending as much as possible. I mean, I was getting very anxious because this win was getting very close to me. I've never actually won a nation's FIA race, especially top split, never done that. Maybe low splits, but I can't remember that done. So to win in a class that's not my favorite or strongest, on a track that's not my strongest, and basically getting back into the FIA competitive racing, I was very proud of what I was already achieving at this point. My lap times were so consistent, in my opinion, with the amount of pressure that I had on my shoulder, or in this case right behind me, because Manavotri was always making sure that I was fully aware that he was behind me and that I had to defend, or at least take a more defensive line than normally, to reassure that I could hopefully keep my first position and keep him behind me. As you could see, which was very surprising, and I was saying it during that live stream as well to Thunder, I was like, huh, I just got the fastest first sector. Like, during that whole race I did not got a purple sector time there. And then suddenly in the last lap, that happened. I apparently had a perfectly fine first sector, which helped me to already not get attacked going into turn 5. But then the last corner still came up. And I made a mistake going into this last corner, but at the same time Manu Rotary has made that mistake as well. We outbroke each other, as you can see. Now you would probably say, but you're still going pretty good through that corner. Yeah, but I missed the apex, and in these kind of splits, that little gap, I would have perfectly understood if Manu Rotary didn't overshoot himself to go for that gap. And then we got our first ever FIA Nations win. I was over the moon at this point. I was so happy. I still am so happy about this win. So yeah, this gave me 2700 points and 35. Well, I should say it differently, 2735 points. My most ever points so far to date. The closest I've been to whatever I wanted as a goal. And currently, well, when this video goes live, not anymore, because I am not doing the next nations race. But yeah, at that moment of time I got P1, also in the EMEA region, so I'm very happy of that. For the next time we will have another live stream, of course, coming up. Making videos is not my specialty, basically. So that's me with my editing skills done. And I have never talked this much in my life before as well. So I really hoped you liked it. If you did like it, don't forget to leave a like, smash the bell and icon down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and you want to see more of these kind of videos or live streams. My name is Iatio Legna, and I thank you very much for watching this. Goodbye.